Do you like books? I mean, really, really like books? Then you're in the right place. Each week, your host, Sam Hankin, interviews the best of today's top-selling authors and the up-and-coming superstars of modern literature. This is The Avid Reader. Here is your host, Sam Hankin.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of The Avid Reader, brought to you by Wellington Square Bookshop. Our guest today is Jerry Stahl, author of Nine. And what would a book today be without a subtitle? One man's tale of depression, torment, and a bus tour of the Holocaust. I can do that without getting up out of this chair, let alone a bus. So I guess visiting Buchenwald, Dachau, and Auschwitz would be a bit of a booster shot, though. So Jerry's as old as me. He wrote Permanent Midnight, which is a cult film favorite starring Ben Stiller. He also wrote for Alf, 30-something. There was a guy in that I hated. Twin Peaks and Northern Exposure, and the screenplay for Bad Boys 2, one of my favorites.
You must be reading off the galleys. They printed my 2007 credits by mistake. So,
well, I know I'm going for
what can you do?
Some of this stuff's been optioned for more movies with Johnny Depp. We'll see what happens with that. There's lots more. There's OG Dad. There's I, Fatty, which also, yeah, that's the Johnny Depp one. And the movie Hemingway and Gellhorn, which I think was on Netflix. So anyway, 999 is a tale of a magical mystery tour through hell. Stop-offs at the greatest killing factories of the 20th century. And Jerry mixes the hell of those places with the hell of his own life, giving us a delightful romp through the manicured lawns of misery, despair, and self-loathing. So welcome, Jerry. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for that introduction. I really appreciate it. And actually, Downey was kind enough to option this one as well. I don't know if that's on the galleys, but that could be interesting.
So two more fun facts. I practice law in the Third Circuit, Eastern District of Pennsylvania. Second, Jack Klugman was my cousin and my friend, and he really did spit a lot. I saw him. Yeah, I saw him at Coconut Grove in the Arthur Miller, The Price. And the guy who lost his mom was the father of the kid in the Wonder Years. And he kept spitting out the whole time. This was after his throat surgery, so he's kind of,
Okay, he was expectorating. I understand.
Yeah, and the other night, my brother and I were at dinner, and I spit some crab cake on him. And we both yelled, Jack, at the same time.
What an esteemed family you have. But yeah, I consider it an honor that at one time in my checkered career, Jack Klugman spit soup on me. Come on.
Yeah, that's ranks right up there. He was in more Twilight Zones than any other actor.
Is that right?
He was in Praise of Pip, was the first time Vietnam was mentioned on TV. Rod Serling. He was in The Flying Dutchman, where the spaceship crashes and they keep going back. Yeah, that was a good one. He was in the Pool Hall one with Jonathan Winters, where he was fighting for his soul.
I remember that one. Yeah. Well, Rod was a patient of the same Dr. Feelgood who gave drugs to JFK and Mickey Mantle, Truman Capote, and Marilyn Monroe. So Rod needed that extra amphetamine boost to crank that shit out. He was the master.
Yeah, and that was when you could smoke cigarettes like Edward R. Murrow constantly.
Nonstop, on camera, yeah.
The last one, and I'll leave you alone, is Gabriel's Horn, where this guy, he's a trumpet player, and he crashes and gets killed, but then it's Gabriel's Horn. Gives him
yeah.
So, okay, you want to talk about your book?
I can talk about Twilight Zones, man, whatever you feel like. It's your show.
Well, because I have a bookstore, I love covers. This is the cover, and I love epigraphs. And this is the saddest epigraph I've ever read, which is the third one. The sky was the color of Jews. My grandparents were from Belarus, Vitebsk, and your father
really? Yeah.
Yep. And your father was from the Ukraine.
He was born in the Ukraine, then lived in Lithuania, and was abandoned for a few years, came over by himself when he was 10. So, yeah, it sounds like we both come from that sort of hardy Eastern European peasant stock,
Yeah, what was the boarding school you went to?
I got shipped away to a place called the Hill School out in Pottstown, outside of Philly, for a couple of years when things went a little south in my family. And yeah.
Yeah, Pottstown's about half an hour from where I sit now, and I went to Blair Academy. We used to play you guys.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it's a distant memory to me. I was just so acid soaked. But the great thing about Pottstown is it's the hometown of Mrs. Smith's pies, as I recall.
Yeah, and I think maybe Taylor Swift too. Not sure.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Illustrious.
So you remember Tasty Cakes too?
Sure, Tasty Cakes. Yeah, I mean, these are the things that form a life, you know.
So in your book, like, you know, I always like it that writers can lie and I forget about it. But I mean, I'm not suggesting that this is like A Million Little Pieces or Shantaram, but like people like Tad and Madge and Bulldozer Bob and Don and Mariko, they're real, right? They're all pretty much the way you write about them.
Yeah, they're real people. I mean, you know, putting this in a million little pieces category is, I don't know. I don't know where you're going for there, but
sorry.
Okay, sure. Make wanton accusations, if you will. But no, I actually went on this trip. I actually met these people. I actually wrote about them, and it was not invented.
My favorite guy is Shlomo.
Yeah, Shlomo. What a character, right-wing Jew.
Did any of these people, do you think, I'm sure you changed the names, did any of them?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah, I know. Have any of them, to your knowledge, read the book?
I don't know, you know, we'll wait and see. You know, it's an interesting thing, you know, because these are real people. You get the emotional truth. You remember the conversations as best you can and reconstruct them as best you can. But I think at its core, the kind of truth you're capturing with these people is, you know, their dreams, their weirdness, their idiosyncratic behavior. And what I loved about Shlomo is his insistence that because of King Cyrus, the Persian king, Trump was predicted. And though he was a rascal, he was nevertheless the savior of the Jews, if not humankind as we know it.
That's something interesting, because in one of your interviews, you said something that's so true, and why we're doomed is that you said when something's in the mail, you know, no one really knows. It's only when it's delivered. Talk about that.
Yeah. Did I say that?
Yeah, you said in the interview. I forgot who it was with. It was with some really strange person who does all kinds of weird movies and worked with Brian Eno and stuff like that. I forgot who it was. Yeah. Well, it must have been recent. It was recently because you were talking about this book.
Yeah, no, you know, I've done a flurry of interviews, but man, I would have loved to talk to somebody who worked with Brian Eno. My God, that would have been phenomenal.
I can tell you it was.
Huh. I'll have to go back and look.
Yeah.
Are you an Eno fan? Do you like that kind of Roxy music and beyond? Yeah.
Brian Ferry, Jerry Hall, the cover of Avalon. I'm a builder too.
Jerry Hall just divorcing Rupert Murdoch or whatever, right? You know, yeah.
Yeah, and in that documentary, Mick Jagger, and she's sitting next to him in the car, kind of saying, "Don't do this," and and also, so I built a subdivision. I called it Avalon, and I used the same font. And then my model homes were the Townsend, the Daltrey, and another one.
So are you inventing this like James Fry, or is this actually true? I will ask you the same question.
I've always thought it was a solipsistic universe, so only one of us is talking. I just don't know which one. Doesn't it look like our libraries are kind of meshing together?
They do. If only I had a dead man waving, you know, that's the touch.
I was going to remove him. I was going to remove him based on the subject matter of the book. I thought maybe, you know, people might be offended.
Is he a constant in your library, or is this just special occasions? Or is she?
No, it's Stan. He just comes in. He's looking for a specific book. He's looking directly at Naked Lunch, actually.
Really? Well, that makes all too much sense. Yeah.
Talk about the damn book.
Sure. It's a strange kind of a memoir. It's it's the story of a guy who was so depressed, that guy being me, and feeling despairing, that I had this sort of insane idea of going to a place on the globe where despair is completely appropriate, possibly the most depressing place on earth. So I got Vice magazine to cover me for a 6-part series of a bus tour of the of concentration camps, Dachau and Buchenwald and Auschwitz. And one thing real quick, I don't know if you know, there's a whole subculture for sort of like not rich people who want to travel in their retirement, and they travel by bus. So it's like, oh, we just did the Finger Lakes, we're going to Dachau, and then we're off to Ireland, the thing sea shanties. So it's a whole other world. And then I get there and I'm ready for this big feeling, to have that emotion. I'm at the site of, one of the greatest crime scenes of the 20th century. And the first thing I see are people sitting at a snack bar, like slamming Fanta and, jamming slices of pizza in their mouth. And it just was not what I expected.
I have a friend who he met his future wife actually inside of Auschwitz.
That's a cute me.
Well, it reminded me of the parts where you talk about the dead people not judging, but being aware of you guys and kind of like making statements about what it was you were doing.
I had this sensation, I don't know if you can relate to this, it's probably better if you can't, but I had this sense that we were walking on the bones of the dead, and that the dead, if they were aware of these people in like, short pants and Megadeth t-shirts and I'm with stupid t-shirts, taking selfies, as happened to me in the book. I got sort of sucked into somebody's selfie when they thought, a bunch of Filipina girls, I hear this Crema, and it turned out they thought I was Kramer, weirdly enough, and wanted to take a selfie with me. And I didn't speak their language, they didn't speak mine. So to just spare everyone the drama, I did a selfie. I mean, I don't know what the etiquette is for posing as a celebrity that you're not, and doing a selfie for people who think you're somebody you aren't. But it was a very strange trip, and none of this was expected to me. I thought it would be reverence and sanctity. And these people, many of them might as well have been going for a day in, Orlando Disney World.
Yeah, I know. It's at the last couple of pages, you kind of start writing maybe like Primo Levi or someone might. I don't know how you feel.
I wish.
Well, yeah. And then Oliver Sacks also you talk about too, who's like my hero. And I miss him. And
did you know him?
No. I just miss him, and I miss his like the
no, I do too. I used his line because my notes got destroyed. So a lot of the conversations were written from memory. And I remembered, I dug up that great Oliver Sacks line to justify myself, which is that, memory is really the memory of the stories we tell ourselves that we think is our memory, which is, I'm butchering the quote, but I always thought the sentiment was quite brilliant.
You know how you just said about your notes, talk about, how you do like I do. Hold on a second. You do like I do, and you buy those moleskin. I get these beautiful journals.
Oh, those are gorgeous, man. Wow.
I know. I'll send you one.
Look at that gold leaf. Wow.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. And then I feel like, okay, this is the perfect book to write the greatest.
This is it. Yeah.
And I write a journal, and it always stops on March 12th.
Yeah. Can you read your own writing? Because that's a problem I also have.
No, I can't.
First 3 sentences, I'm very careful. After that, it's just, chickens who are dipped in ink and let loose,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like you kind of said, like, you're like a prisoner writing on toilet paper, and then and then your maid throws them all out. So is it all, when you reconstructed it, you're pretty good at that, I guess.
Well, look, I've been a journalist for years. I had a lot of notes and I lost a lot of notes. And somebody's grandmother needed little cash. And I said, okay, you want to, because I'm not a maid kind of guy, but it was a house, it was fucked up when I got home. And just because I do end up I buy your notebooks like you, but I end up scribbling, like you say, on the backs of receipts, menus, ticket stubs, and I had this pile of scribbled on garbage, which she quite reasonably tossed out. So that happened. But being an ex-dope fiend, I'm great in a crisis. I break a shoelace, I'm a dead man. But World War III, I'm chill.
Yeah.
So I worked through it.
That reminds me of another fun fact for us is that, you talk about growing up and like you were the only Jew and you get picked on and all. When I went to Cheltenham High School, I thought everyone was Jewish. And you talk about him. I played football with Reggie Jackson, played touch football with him. And the other student at my school was Benjamin Netanyahu.
No kidding. But I'm guessing Reggie Jackson was a lot of the Jewish persuasion. Or was he? Is this something we need to know?
There were only 2 Black people out of 2,000. Reggie Jackson and Craig Littlepage, who went on to be barely made it into the NBA.
Have you read that Joshua Cohen book about the Netanyahu?
No.
It's an amazing, he's such a brilliant writer.
I'm writing it down.
I'm in awe of him.
What's it called?
What is it called? It might be something with Netanyahu. It's all about Netanyahu. It's his sort of artificial history of Netanyahu, but because I'm a man of a certain age, memory's gone out the window. But all his books, he wrote a book called Witz, W-I-T-Z, which is about the last Jew on earth. It is absolutely brilliant.
There's a guy who wrote a book called The Senility of Vladimir P. It was a while ago.
And what a great title.
It was. And it was about how if you walked into Vladimir Putin's office with a really nice watch on it, and he said, I like that watch, the next day you better give it to him or you'd be dead. And I said to the guy, aren't you worried like that Putin's going to come after you and put some rice in your porridge? And he wasn't.
Yeah.
He was a very, very brave guy.
Where does the senility work into that?
Well, it's just this
as opposed to the kleptocracy of it all.
Well, it's like this Borgian meta fantasy kind of thing.
That sounds great.
It was really good. The other good book you should read is The Half-Life of Gregor Samsa. It's about the metamorphosis ends and the Char lady sweeps him out, but he's not dead. And he goes to America and he becomes an advisor to Franklin Roosevelt.
That is absolutely brilliant. I love that thing in Kafka because the same thing happened in The Hunger Artist where they forgot about him and he was just swept out of the cage. Who wrote that? The Half-Life of Gregor Samsa. That's this is a very valuable podcast for me because I'm learning so much about books I need to read.
That's another one I get 5 copies of, and also The Quincunx by Charles Palliser. Half-Life of Greg, I can almost remember it, Gregor Samsa. He's a nice guy too. Mark Estrin.
Okay.
Another Jewish guy. My mother always took saccharin from the restaurants. She called it the pink stuff.
She called it what?
The pink
stuff? Maybe it's some epigenetic memory of complete deprivation where it's like if there's free sweetener, that's going home with the mustard.
I know. My mother would drive to the grocery store to get Gulden's mustard. And when she got there, she would go, I think I may have a jar at home. So she'd drive home and I said, Mom, you're spending more in gas than the mustard costs. But
yeah.
But your dad was born in 1920, right?
Yes, he was. Yeah.
And mine
was 49 years before he checked himself out.
Yeah. And you that's the other thing you do is same shit I do is like, it's not, well, okay, your dad, and you kind of joke about him driving into the garage and dying of carbon monoxide poisoning, which you can't do anymore, I don't think. But anyway.
I don't know if I joke about it, but I talk about it and mention that it's difficult to do that now with unleaded gas, I think is the follow-up to that story.
Right. But you did, what was her name? The woman who was in the Third Circuit, the Japanese woman?
Who Mariko. Yeah.
Shlomo asked her the Chinese.
Mortifying. These things happen and they are burned in your brain because I don't know about you, but it's some weird form of empathy where you feel shame on someone else's behalf. And it's like you want the earth to swallow you, even though they're the ones who committed this complete egregious faux pas, thinking someone who, happens to be of the Asian, who's Asian will know where the Chinese restaurants are. I mean, it was horrifying.
Yeah, it's like everyone
so racist, but for the sweet old man who just didn't know any better,
Yeah. My brother and I, everyone compares us both to Larry David. So I feel cringe. I can't watch more than one episode. Like when he's at the restaurant with John Hamm and he turns to the Chinese people, and he goes, so what do you guys get? And the guy goes, why would I know? Why are you asking me?
Yep. I see the resemblance a little bit. Sure. Yeah.
Well, if you're Kramer, yeah, and you're upset.
Some apparently, yeah. News to me. But I don't know which was the worst. The fact that I was feeling like shit about looking like Kramer, the fact that I was feeling like shit about looking like Kramer at a concentration camp. That doesn't speak well. But that's humanity. I mean, they have to have signs up there, no Pokemon.
Right. Pokemon Go. Yeah. That was a dangerous game.
I guess it was. I didn't even know, I had to look into it. Are you a Pokemon player?
No, but I have a 14-year-old stepdaughter who, you go someplace and you look at your thing and, he's up in a tree. He's here. He's in your high school cafeteria.
Yeah. How does that work? Has she explained it to you? I mean, do they plant things like virtually or how? I mean, I've never figured it out.
They just do coordinates, and then they say, it's latitude to 0.00001.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's where it is. And then you got to go find it. And a lot of high schools have banned the whole thing, but yeah. And I ask this every day to anybody. Can you think of anything good that has happened in the past 6 years?
Anything good that's happened in the past 6 years?
Yeah.
Well, puppies are still being born. I'm a sunshine and buttercups kind of guy.
Yeah, sure you are.
So let's face it, on the macro scale, nothing but bleak. On the micro, those puppies are still being born. So that's nice.
Well, they increase the carbon footprint though. But the only thing I can think of.
Well, they don't fart as much as cows. So
right. And they don't give off a lot of methane like those sheep in New Zealand either.
Yeah, dogs and methane, I don't think it's an issue yet. Oh my God. It's interesting when you meet someone. I don't want the readers to think they have to be like 106 years old to relate to this book, but it is a treat to get these references, like the fact that Ilsa She-Wolf of the SS was shot on the set of Hogan's Heroes. Factoid.
Yeah. There was one reference you made and you jokingly said, it's over your head because you're reading this. I forgot what it was. There's tons of them though. Like, if you talk about smoke on the water or something like that, I have no idea.
Smoke on the water. Yeah. Happily, I didn't talk about smoke on the water. I think the joke, my theory of journalism, to the extent I have one, because I don't really talk about writing, is, in a situation like this, always make yourself the biggest asshole. So, if I'm talking about references that people don't get, the joke's still going to be on me for making the reference or for being antiquated enough where that's even in my head. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
I'm not insulting the audience is what I'm saying.
Well, it's like you writing a bunch of the stuff in there in Polish. Now you can go to Google Translate, but
I know, right.
But formerly you would just have to gloss over it and use the context.
It's a whole new world. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's kind of cool. You don't really have to have a brain, but I don't know. Oh, yeah.
No intellect, but plenty of information, I think is the way it is these days.
You just have to know how to frame the right query. That's all you have to know now.
I know. And what do you think that does? I mean, you have a 14-year-old. What do you think that does to the up and coming, generations to have that kind of dynamic in their lives?
All I know is that you and I are both dinosaurs. I can't give an answer to that. I mean, and
Yeah.
how the fuck are we 70 years old? Well, you're 68.
Well, I'm 68, but I look, I'm closer to dead than 40. That's for sure. So I don't know. It's for especially for an ex-dope fiend writer. It's really bad for your cred. To not die young. So I just have to live with that.
Yeah. Plus, you had a mass on your kidney.
Well, I think if you live long enough, shit's going to start to grow.
Yeah, you're all going to get cancer.
We're all, these are our pre-cancer years, if we're lucky. I don't know, maybe you've crossed that threshold, but I feel like it's just, what's it going to be? Is it going to be dementia? Is it going to be cancer? We're going to stagger in front of a bus, looking at Twitter. I mean, what's it going to be? Do you foresee your own end?
Yeah, what I do every day is I kind of have a clock in my head, and if my kids are like at 2:00, I'm at 11:45. Or if you take a bottle of wine, you drink a half a bottle, that's 40 years, and another quarter, that's 60. So I got like this much wine left, and no one even drinks that wine.
Yeah,
I got sediment in me.
Yeah, well, we are all sediment at this point. Yeah, at best.
What was I gonna say? Yeah, one interesting thing, which I say to everybody, is that everyone thought Hitler was a clown, and the Jews, who were really smart, were sure he was a clown because it made perfect sense. And Trump was a clown, but you say that was his, talent.
That's his superpower. The same with Hitler. People didn't take him serious. They thought they could use him. And, in fact, many industrialists made money off of Hitler. And a lot of the 1% clearly made money off of Trump. So it's, the gift is being so common and unpretentious. I mean, the great thing about Trump is he'll tell you how brilliant he was. Hitler did the same thing and had legions backing him up. So on some level, it pays to start off as a clown. It gets you in the door.
It was funny too when you did the Sarah Silverman. Tell the Sarah Silverman joke. I like that one.
If I can, I'm terrible at telling jokes, but the punchline is that her niece, with apologies to Sarah, comes to her and says, talk about the Holocaust and talks about how 60 million died. And Sarah says, well, only, I think it was more like 6 million, because 60 million, too many. Now, I'm not a joke teller. I'm not a comedian. So if that wasn't funny, it's all on me. It's not Sarah, who is absolutely brilliant.
Well, it's like you said, too soon, which reminded me of Gilbert Gottfried, may he rest in peace, at the Friars Club. I would have been here sooner, but I just had to stop at the Empire State Building. And it's like, and they all yell, too soon, too soon. But that's the thing about laughter. Is it ever too soon,
That's a great question. I mean, it's worth noting that Hitler, since we're talking about Hitler, that old dope fiend, he wasn't scared of assassination. He was scared of being laughed at and mocked. And it is true that, I think with Trump, not to make too many hot takes about those two, it's the same dynamic, right? Nobody wants respect as much as Trump.
And of course, with regard to laughter, because of cancel culture and Me Too and all that stuff, you can't do anything that you used to do. Sarah Silverman can't do her act. Amy Schumer can't do her act.
Yeah, well, the kind of art I've always loved is people who say the unsayable. It's funny, you were talking about Primo Levi before, and along with Borowski. I mean, these guys survived the camps and nevertheless killed themselves. So what do you think that is about? Do you think it's the survivors' guilt, or the fact that Levy said the best people are not the ones who survive?
What intrigues me most about that is the time period between when they left the camp and when they killed themselves. What was going on there?
Yeah. I don't know exactly how long it was afterward that either of them took their own lives, but that is a very interesting question to think about, what was going on.
There was a story I read about this girl who was in Auschwitz, and as they started, when they first went in, they're cutting all the girls' hair off, and the girls are crying. This one girl is laughing, and they said, "How can you be laughing when they're doing this to us?" And she goes, "I've never had a free haircut in my life."
Now that's funny.
It is
Yeah.
funny.
Well, I think, this is not a thought original to me, but oppressed people in general, whether it's Jews, African Americans, Native Americans, the Irish back in the day, have always had the greatest senses of humor because, again, not an original insight, but it is a survival tool. And, I think it was on another book of mine, I Fatty, the one about Arbuckle, the epigraph is Samuel Beckett, who said, "There's nothing funnier than unhappiness," which you can chew on for years and not exactly, figure out where he's going with that.
You said a couple things in the book that are kind of, no, they're not diametrically opposed, but you quote it like waiting for Godot. I can't go on, I'll go on.
Well, I said, I can't go on, I'll read Samuel Beckett. That's what I said. Yeah.
That was pretty funny. But yeah, but then you go to the other side, which like what Warren Zevon said was enjoy every sandwich. That's how you end it. That's how you end it on an up note.
Well, I don't think I quote Warren Zevon.
No. I'm just thinking of it.
Yeah. I think by the way, the Samuel Beckett reference was by way of a digression, how he used to drive Andre the Giant to school.
Yeah,
separate issue. But if you're an Andre the Giant fan, you might like this book. But yeah, the insight I came to is that the Holocaust, genocide, murderous regimes, they're not the exception, they're the rule. The axe is always falling. So in the time between, you might as well be grateful because that axe is falling.
And the other thing is like Stalin, 5'4" Stalin, who says one death is a tragedy, a million deaths is a statistic.
Yeah. He did pretty well for a bank robber. He came up and turned his life around. Gotta give him that.
Yeah. House painter, bank robber,
Yeah. Yeah. You never know who you're dealing with in this life or where they will end up.
Lots of different kinds of people pull themselves up by their own bootstraps.
That's true. So are you still a practicing lawyer, or do you devote yourself to the bookstore, or what? How does it work for you?
Well, I have this, which is the most fun I've ever had in my life, interviewing people who I would never think you would talk to me. But it's great, especially after COVID, because it used to be you'd go out on tour, go to a couple bookstores, you talk to 100 people, 50 people. Now you're talking to the world, theoretically, if anyone listened to this.
I'm sure there's, my tens of fans will be watching this. But I actually prefer it. I like this. I love book tours too, but there's a lot to be said for just doing the podcast version,
Yeah. You're never going to meet
anyone.
anyone.
How long have you been doing this, may I ask?
Like 10 or 12 years, and like interviewing Paul Harding and interviewing David Mitchell and
Wow.
Galchin. It's great. Who would think they would talk
those are some heavyweights.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know. And yeah.
Who was the toughest interview?
Oh, Eric Larson.
Really?
Yeah, because I said, so tell us a little bit about what your book is about. And he goes, and then he said, can we stop for a minute? And can you tell me what my book is about?
Mm-hmm.
Which was,
I can totally relate. It's like you get put on the spot and you get brain freeze. Yeah. It sounds like you more or less have read the book. A lot of people who interview you have no idea.
That's
which is
shameful. That is so shameful.
Well, and it's the first thing they say, and then you're sort of okay. Well, we're just going to muddle through this, car wreck. But so it means a lot that you've read the book.
Of course, I've read it. Well, first of all, I always read it. Second of all, I read it in one sitting because it was great. But that's just because you and I are similar. I'm not thinking everybody else is going to think it's great.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, do you make any money off of these books?
Well, how I make the money, thanks for asking, is the auction. You know, when you do the movie auction, it makes it worthwhile. I do not write these for money, obviously. At some point, writing becomes like an expensive habit, but I've had more expensive habits in my day. And you know, I got that graphomania. You know, I'm always working on something. So if I can write it and then it gets optioned, you know, I'm not saying what Downey's going to do with it. I mean, I'm not anticipating Iron Mensch, you know, but who knows? So that's a way of surviving, you know. And you know, I still do work. I still write screenplays and stuff.
The stupidest thing you did on this trip was buy that Blue Smart suitcase. Explain that to people. It really does exist. I had to look it up on Amazon.
No, it's a real thing. Yeah, I'm not trying to look good here. I had the bright idea of sort of like those expensive notebooks. I thought, you know, I really need a suitcase that can charge my iPhone. And I got something called a Blue Smart suitcase, which you had to lock somehow doing something on your phone, which I could never figure out, which was bad enough. So I couldn't break into my own suitcase. So I'm just wearing like, you know, 4-day-old clothes. Worse, you put it in the room and it would beep kind of plaintively, like, you know, I'm over here. It wanted attention, like a pup. And I had to just pile towels on it because and spent a lot of time on the phone with the crack luggage technicians from Blue Smart Inc., to whom I apologize mightily right now. So yeah, that happened. Thank you for bringing it up. Another gala episode, you know.
You talk about you know, the Jerry Lewis movie that hasn't seen the light of day, The Day the Clown Cried. And I read a lot about that after I read you writing about it. And it reminded me how much I hated It's a Beautiful Life, especially when he got on the tops of the chairs and ran up to get his Oscar.
Yeah, that's tough sledding. Those like happy Holocaust movies. Yeah, it's yeah, I don't get it, but there's no accounting for taste. You know, it all depends on what we bring to the table too. I mean, people didn't like Schindler's List, myself among them, because it seemed like the great Gentile savior took care of these Jews who seemingly had no agency of their own, you know, and a lot of people took umbrage with that. Doesn't mean it wasn't, you know, beautiful to look at and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, I'm with you, especially about It's a Beautiful Life. Kind of a travesty.
None of it would have happened. None of it. I'm just taking notes, sorry.
I thought you were picking something off your shoe. You know, I can't see what you're doing. I thought maybe you had an errant dog who somehow discharged in a house.
An errant dog. That's a good title for a novel.
Could be. They're out there.
I have a whole list.
Are you writing? Do you write yourself? Are you writing? Forgive me if I don't know your books, and I should.
No, I can do dialogue and exposition and all that, but I just can't think of a story.
Well, you know, it's what Norman Mailer said about writing novels. You know, they asked him if he plotted, and he said, "Not really. You know, writing a novel is like driving at night. You see 20 feet ahead in your headlights. You go that 20 feet, and then you see the next 20 feet." I think you should just dive in, man.
Yeah, well, I'm 70, but I guess it's never too late. I got screwed up when my English professor in college. I went to him and I said, you know, how do you go about writing a novel? He goes, if you have to ask, you'll never do it. And that was it. He was an asshole. He got fired because he stroked some girl's hair in the elevator and said, "You have beautiful hair." And that was in 1974. Wow,
he was an early onset hair stroker. Wow, yeah. That's pretty fast. Is that all he did? You know, he sort of stroked her hair inappropriately.
That's it.
Well, no, I wasn't in that elevator, so I can't judge. But he sounds kind of creepy.
Yeah, things that happen in elevators between two people, just like Mike Tyson and the girl coming to his room at 4 o'clock in the morning to ask for a cup of sugar. You know.
Yeah. Well, these days, everything that happens in an elevator is generally on film, so you got to keep that in mind. Even if you're on, especially if you're on by yourself. I mean, you don't know who's watching.
Especially if you're a professional athlete too.
Yeah, well, that too. Sure.
The other thing that you and I share, assuming you believe that we share anything, is that you run into doors. I, my mother used to put those bathtub appliques on all the sliding doors in our house.
Yeah, I can't say I've done it before, but I judgmentally walked through the gorgeous cafeteria at Buchenwald, just kind of snoddily giving like, full attitude to those diners. And then as I'm walking, I smash into a plate glass window. I instantly start bleeding. And then I kind of have to skulk back past all the people I was judging and go to the Buchenwald cafeteria men's room to get some Buchenwald paper towels and dab my head while I was bleeding on the way out. So very graceless, gracelessness under pressure.
Yeah.
Really.
I got into a fight with someone one time. I was wearing roller skates. You should never wear roller skates when you're getting into a fight. It's very bad. You don't have much
That's pretty
momentum.
funny. That's very Judd Apatow of you. I mean, that's kind of a hilarious concept.
I didn't think of that. I should write something. Oh, what was I gonna say? Shit, I forgot. Something about.
All right.
I forgot. I'm looking at my book, 10,000 Jokes, Toasts, and Stories.
Oh, nice. Wow. I think I might have that. I also have Milton Berle's joke book. I love those old sort of cocktail napkin, Jackie Leonard, the insults, put on your shoes, go back to New Jersey, or Oscar Levant. Remember that great one? Like, I knew Doris Day before she was a virgin.
Yeah.
I love all that.
Yeah, you put that in there. Did you, wait a minute, did you write about Oscar Levant? Is that another one?
Yeah. Stiller and I were going to do a movie about him. It didn't end up happening. But I got to delve into one of my favorite books. And one of the great things about writing a book is you can turn, forget your own book, but you can turn readers onto things they might not know. And I think Oscar Levant, kind of forgotten, he wrote this great book called Memoirs of an Amnesiac. And then after the thing fell through with Ben, Natasha Lyonne wanted to direct it, and we rewrote and tried to get it. But, just soon to never be made, like so many cool projects.
Well, it's like talking to someone. I mean, my wife is 20 years younger than me, which is a lot, but not, she knows who Groucho Marx is. I think you bring that up too. But anyway, if you started talking to someone about Georgie Jessel or imitated him, who the hell's going to know what you're talking about?
Did I mention George Jessel? That's grotesque. Yeah, if I did, I deserved everything I didn't get. Wow, George Jessel. My God. Yeah.
Toastmaster General.
Toastmaster General, yeah. I guess, I guess we're the last generation who grew up watching like Merv Griffin, and these after school comedians, who would come on. George Gobel said he felt like brown shoes with a black suit. I mean, these guys, it's like I was talking to Marin about this, and his favorite comedian is Jackie Vernon, he would show slides and then comment on them. I mean, it's priceless.
Didn't he have a clicker?
Yeah, he had a little clicker, and he was very deadpan, and it's just hilarious.
Yeah, and no one remembers.
To a young mind,
Yeah, and all that stuff was so good. I mean, there's nothing better than Duck Soup or Night. I mean, there's nothing made now that's better than that. It's the funniest thing in the world.
Oh, it's different. I mean, I'm not one of those people who thinks the best stuff that ever is going to happen already happened. I think there's a ton of great shit now. I might not know about it. I might not even appreciate it. But I try to think, if I was 20 years old and I saw this thing or that thing, then I get why it's considered brilliant, Well,
it's all seminal too. So everything else theoretically is derivative, So you watch the seminal thing and you go, oh, I've already seen this stuff,
Very true. I mean, you look at blues, but even the seminal stuff came from somewhere, So it's hard to go back to that sort of golden era when all things began. But there's just I think there's just a lot of great work being done still, And I'm glad to get a book out there, at the ripe age of 114.
Yeah, if I watch TV, everyone tells me what to watch, but I mean, you're right. There is a lot of really funny stuff.
Well, this thing I got to work on with look, it sound name dropping, but I'm so proud of this project, Escape at Dannemora. with Benicio del Toro, which Stiller was directed, got nominated for like a zillion Emmys. I mean, it's like, what's great about it is it feels like you're watching a 70s movie. You know, it's like Dog Day Afternoon. And you could say it's derivative. You could also say it's done in a way that is very now, but using the great, you know, the great elements from the past. And I love all that. You know, I don't know that you have to be absolutely new and reinvent the wheel every time. You know, there's a lot of good wheels you can derive your shtick from. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. I was just thinking of The Big Lebowski, and also in your book, you have that reference to the ashes blowing backwards. And I remember when they were scattering Donnie's ashes and they blew back, they blew back.
That actually happened to me in real life before Lebowski. Yeah, it was, I went out for burials at sea. I used to be a journalist. It was pre-internet, so it's like it didn't count. But for many years, I was the feature magazine guy. And I went out, and this father and son team was burying people out at sea. By burying, they opened up the shoebox full of their cremains, and they happened to be eating McDonald's, you know, at the same time. So the grit blew back right into their sandwich. And the great part was, and why I admired these guys, dad and son, they just picked out the grit, kept on eating, you know? Yeah. I guess it was our, yeah.
It's like my bookstore. Like I ordered some urns for cremated. I mean, what bookstore? I just got them in, and all my staff hates me because I buy this stuff. And the inscription on the outside says, "Your wings were ready, but I was not."
That's fantastic. You buy the empty urn with the inscription?
Yeah, I bought a dozen of them.
Wow, you are a real crowd pleaser. So your bookstore staff like hates that.
Yeah, yesterday I also bought a fog machine for the back, but I don't know why I bought the fog machine. Most of the stuff I don't use.
Oh, dramatic.
Yeah.
You know, are you shooting like a rock video in the back of your store or what?
I just thought I'd put it in the mystery section.
I think it's great. I mean, what noir character does not to, like, you know, stumble in out of the fog?
Fantastic. I'm worried it might ruin the book. I'm thinking it might ruin the book though.
They really, if you've ever been around like a fog machine, they really smell. I mean, it's very chemical odor. So you might want to consider what it's going to do to your interior. But worth it for that one great afternoon.
Yeah, that's why I put Clorox in my fountain, just for possibility of somebody falling in. They, you know.
Sure. You pre-bleach. I think you can't go wrong that way. Yeah.
I don't know. We need to talk more about the book. Oh, okay, wait a minute. The other epigraph. The first one, yeah.
First one's James Baldwin.
Yeah, and it's like, the world is mostly divided between madmen who remember and madmen who forget. Who are the ones? Give me an example of one who remembered and one who forgot.
Well, not to make it about me, but I think we're both. I think we have to forget on some level to keep going, because if you remember, you're obsessed and you can't go forward, which is also a kind of madness. So I think we are all a mix of these two things.
Well, the scary thing about Trump is he's not mad. He's just narcissistic. I mean, he doesn't care if he kills somebody or not. That's not he doesn't have an agenda of sorts. That's why it's a little different.
It's a little different. I think Adderall does that. You know, Adderall can make your life really small, you know, and even Joe Rogan, weirdly enough, was talking about how Trump was a man baby who lives on Adderall. And, you know, all bets are off in terms of agendas or awareness, guilt, ambition. This is just, I exist to stay in power and not lose, because I feel internally like such a loser. I don't want to be exposed. You know, his dad did a real number on him, don't you think? Papa Trump?
Yeah. And I don't know what number he did on Donald or especially Eric, but yeah.
Oh, the boys, yeah. Yeah. Eric's one of those guys, no matter how old he is, he's going to be the Trump boy, you know?
Yeah, whoever does him on Saturday Night Live is hilarious.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I don't, I keep doing this thing. You ought to go. Are you going to go on Joe Rogan for this book? I mean, obviously he'd be a lot better than me.
I doubt it. I did Marin, which was great. I don't anticipate going on Rogan. I mean, I will serve if asked, but I'm not fending off the request at this particular time. I mean, you don't have to agree with people to roll by and talk to them necessarily. I did Dr. Drew, which was weird, but kind of fun.
Is he still around?
He's still around, but I got to talk about my favorite topic, which is Hitler's drug use and the fact that his personal doctor, Morell, in his concoction, it was morphine, amphetamine, cocaine, and Bulgarian peasant stool for that extra oomph that he thought the Fuhrer needed. I mean, can't make that up.
No, well, it seems like it is made up because I can't believe he could rule as he did, if he did, well, as he did, in that kind of condition. I don't know what kind of condition he would have been in every day.
Well, it got him up off the couch. I mean, look, JFK needed his, JFK loved his amphetamine cocktails. He needed a bang from the doctors. So I think it's more of a question of how could he rule without it? Because Hitler was a naturally lazy guy who liked to get up at noon and eat sweet rolls. And this stuff got him up and at him, in the morning, thanks to Dr. Morell, who was always on hand with those daily morning injections. But you also see what it did to him in a matter of years. That 1,000-year Reich ended in 6, 7 years. By the end, Hitler was like a quivering, palsied old man, and that's what the drugs did to him, because he used so intensely, he didn't have any veins left.
And you talk about, Goebbels and Goring and Albert Speer, who I have a lot of sympathy for, and Hess. But the thing that seemed to piss you off the most in the book is there was only 12 people that were tried and hung. And I get pissed off.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, there's so legions of guilt, and not a lot of people really paid for it. And look at I.G. Farben, like Hugo Boss made. Don't get me going on this, because it's something I think is really, people need to know. Like Hugo Boss, who makes a lot of our mitzvah boy suits, designed the SS uniforms. I.G. Farben, way back when they were the Fuhrer's pharmaceutical company. Back in the day when in America aspirin was illegal and heroin was legal. Side note. I mean, all these companies, Volkswagen, we're saying that they all still exist. Nobody paid a price. Nobody. They thrived throughout the Third Reich, and they thrived after the Third Reich. And, I don't judge you if you wear a Hugo Boss suit, but it's worth knowing that happened. Don't you think?
Yeah, well, you asked me what I did. And the other thing is my brothers and I own a building company that my father started in 1958. And up to his dying day, if he saw someone driving a if someone who worked for him drove a Volkswagen, or worse, a Mercedes, he'd just fire him. I mean, that was no question.
I love hearing that. I mean, that kind of almost irrational passion. I mean, I really love that. He must have been an incredible old guy.
He was the most amazing person I ever met. My brother says I mythologize him, and I go, if you're going to mythologize someone, it may as well be your father.
Well, tell me about what is his most mythic quality?
Well, it was like Kennedy and Clinton. If he walked into a room, there wasn't anybody else in the room ever. Nobody ever.
How hard was that for you though? Because as a kid, if you're just eclipsed by the power and aura of your parent, that's got to have an effect, no?
Shit, I was his eldest son, and everybody else who worked for him or with him always was scared of him. They respected him. And they would tell me that, and I would go, "You're scared of him. What do you think I feel like? I'm with him every day."
Oh my God, yeah.
And then when
did he terrorize you?
No, because he just worked all the time. He even worked on Saturdays, and he was in a horrible mood on Sunday because he wasn't working. So we drove around like your mom and dad, and my mom and dad would both smoke cigarettes. She smoked Cools, Marlboros, and the windows were closed. That's probably
What was that? That's insane. Yeah, my mother wouldn't let us open the windows. She wouldn't even let my father drive. but she was like hammering those, those terrans like there's no tomorrow.
It was like the smoking and non-smoking sections on airplanes. You're right.
Yeah, remember those? Yeah, in the back.
Yeah. And now, if you're around cigarettes now, even if you're just someone in the same room, do you get headaches? I can't. I get a horrible headache. And you guys
I either get or I want a cigarette. It depends on my chemistry the other day. Because I used to, that's a hard kick, getting off of nicotine.
Well, especially with a writer, and you get up in the morning, you have a cup of coffee. There's no way you can't have a cigarette with a cup of coffee.
Yeah, you got to do something. Obviously the weirdest drug for me has been living on the natch, but that's, because it's Hubert Selby, a great novelist whose name I will drop, once told me, because I'm like, oh, I give up heroin and drugs, I'm going to lose my edge. She said, no, you asshole, you don't know how crazy you are until you're off of everything, and it's just your brain. And boy, that is a terrifying truth that I found in my life.
Yeah, and like you, that happens to me every day. It's like, and the thing about cigarettes is, during my first divorce, I'd sit outside my office, just sitting against the brick, and smoke cigarette after cigarette, and I realized these are my friends. These cigarettes.
Cigarette friends, yeah, sure.
Yeah, and they were good. Excuse me?
Do you miss your cigarette friends, or are you still smoking?
No, I'm not. And I never smoked filtered cigarettes, only Luckies and Camels.
Tough guy, huh?
Yeah, what was the point of filters,
No, listen, it's like those French, just with the gitanes,
Oh, Galois.
Like smoke or Galois, it's like smoking a carpet. I mean, it is so rough on the lungs, but hats off.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing is about getting to this age that you just like have a thought in your mind and then it just goes away, like right away.
Yeah, happily that started with me in my 30s. So, by now you just perfect ways of graciously saying, oh, well, I used to have a memory, or whatever, because you get used to it, man.
Well, I'm older than you. But what about like with faces and names? You must be good at that in your business.
No, I'm terrible at that. No. Yeah, I'm always perfecting ways of introducing somebody who I have no idea what their name is to someone whose name I've also forgotten. I mean, it's like some weird kabuki, I guess if you're a self-actualized human being, you can just say, I've forgotten all of you, and nothing personal, but I haven't reached that yet.
I was going to get business cards that had there's a name for the syndrome and hand them out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I forgot what it's called.
You've forgotten the name, of course.
Yeah,
it wouldn't be a syndrome if you could remember the name.
Well, someone will, you do it too. Someone will go, hey, Sam, and I go, hey, man, how you doing? But that's all I can. Well, my wife is good, because if we're at a party, she'll go up and go, hi, I'm Carrie, and your name is, and I just like stand back. Oh yeah, this guy's, I've known Don for years.
Well, yeah, if you go, your name is, when the guy was your best friend for 30 years, not good.
Well, I was at a party one time. I was sitting with this guy talking to him, and like 20 minutes later, he goes, you don't know who I am, do you?
Oh, ouch.
And I said, no. He goes, I'm your accountant.
Oh, that's a guy you don't want to piss off.
Nah, he was a bad accountant now. He screwed me over.
Yeah, I've had him. Been there.
Oh, yeah. So what was the other epigraph? The second one. Did I get them all? No.
There's one by E.M. whose name I can never pronounce. C-I-O-I-N.
Yes, sure.
Jordan.
This is how you've lived your life. Write books only if you're going to say in them the things you would never dare confide to anyone. I mean, you're way more courageous than I could ever be. How do you do that?
Exactly as that quotation says, I'm often accused in life of being kind of like, a little shut down, a little playing close to the vest. In books, I'll say anything, but in real life, I still keep up the illusion of a front,
Yeah, but it's a memoir. I mean, it is you.
That it is me. Yeah, no place to hide. But I also, I think all our secrets are the same, essentially. And I don't know how you are with books, but with me, the subject is less important than the voice. If there is a voice I love, I will follow it anywhere. And so even in my book, which might, I'm going to a lot of strange places and concentration camps and buses and weird, angles of Hollywood grotesquerie. But if you like the voice, I like to think, people will relate to it, or at least
yeah. It's like Amor Towles, who I interviewed him for Rules of Civility and Gentlemen in Moscow, and he has this new one called Cloud Cuckoo Land, which doesn't have the greatest plot, but his writing is so beautiful.
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're reading mysteries and thrillers, are you really reading to see what happens next? On some level, yeah. But on some level, it's like you're immersed in his voice and you just, you just want to hear it. You want more of it.
Yeah. It's a bad word. It's not that I envy that. And it's not that I admire it. It's just something that is, kind of evanescent, just, that's the word.
That's a great word. Yeah. It's hard though. I mean, I have a hard time going back into my books after I write them because I keep thinking of ways I could have said it better. There's the great story of Stanley Alkin, the great Jewish American novelist. He was such a compulsive rewriter. He would sit in the truck to the printer in New Jersey and, with a red pencil, which I totally related to. And doing the Audible book, which I did, I'm reading the whole book and it's all I can do not to just change shit on the fly, which is kind of uncool, and fix all these things I could have said better or I wished I hadn't said it all. But that's how it is. Everything feels like a work in progress. So at some point, you just got to type the end.
Yeah, I was thinking the producer and editor of the audiobook must get pissed off at you, which reminded me of your phone call in the middle of a concentration camp with these studio pencil neck geek. And tell that one. That's great.
I'll make this quick, but I had sold my previous book, OG Dad, Old Guy Dad. Weird shit happens when you don't buy young. Sort of a funny book about being an older guy, marry a younger woman, and having a kid in older age, and hijinks ensue, and it's all fun and happy. And ABC bought the book because they heard me on Marin. God forbid they should read it. And then two things happened. One, they read the book and they were horrified. And two, they kept wanting me to make it more palatable, than the reality of what I wrote. And so the one incident you might be referring to is I'm staggering out of an oven, and I make the mistake of picking up the phone and looking at it. And it's like,
I can't believe
it. Can you make Jerry less creepy? And it's like, well, that's horrifying enough. It's horrifying that I'm at a camp doing it. And then I had the idea to set the book around the guy who has to write a Ilsa She-Wolf of the SS kind of movie. And I'm like, as a matter of fact, I'm at Buchenwald now. And this guy's like, where? Bloomingdale's? And it was just horrifying. And I kind of hated myself all over the place. But it's an interesting anecdote for a book because people find themselves in these situations. I don't think I'm alone in finding myself in these
you are kind of
odd situations.
You are kind of alone because he's asking you to make it. He's asking you to make it better, and you make it worse on the phone to him, and then he says, "Thanks for calling."
Better is a very loaded word. Yeah. Thanks for calling. One man's better in Hollywood is another man's, put it through the deflavorizer machine, So as often happened with me, I got paid 75 cents on the dollar not to write it. So, what a way to make a living.
That's great. Like farmer subsidies not to grow corn.
Exactly.
If you don't exercise your creative impulse, we'll pay you.
Yeah, that's how much we respect you and your work.
But you do stuff that other people don't. You're in the middle of this, taking a meeting, giving the pitch, and you say, I couldn't, I couldn't plot myself to the parking lot.
I couldn't plot my way to the car. Yeah, at that point in life, I don't know what happened. I was a blurter. I just blurted out this complete self-sabotaging thing. Mind you, I knew it wasn't happening. You know, I was paired with somebody who didn't like my work to begin with, which happens. There's nothing better than working with people you love and collaborating, which is like being paid to like hang out with friends. But when it doesn't work and you're just going uphill, man, you know, driving with the brakes on, I think I might have just shot myself in the foot because I knew I was going to be shot in the head 5 minutes later.
I think you just do it a lot just because you just do it. I don't think there's anything you can do about it, right? That's what
Who
I do.
knows? Yeah, it's you know, there's at least I got a book out of it. You know, it was funny in a book, so I salvaged a shred of self-respect.
I get like the demographic in my bookstore is a bunch of older ladies. Oh yeah,
Now,
the blue rinse. But
the
you
blue
know,
hair. Yeah.
yeah. And I say things that are horrible, and then they're offended, and I go, I think you're offended, but I'm not being offensive."
Well, how
Right?
defensive are you insulting to your clientele? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, I just say something that's like totally
It's
wrong.
horrible.
Yeah,
That's
it's just-
horrible. These innocent, these nice ladies, and they come in expecting to buy some lovely, you know, some lovely tome, and you're assaulting them verbally.
they're usually
What's that
buying-
about? Did you have issues with your mother or what?
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
Oh,
Well, but they're usually buying crap. You know what I do with Republicans? Sometimes, because I sell collectible used books too, and they'll come up and they'll go, "This book costs too much." And I go, "All right, what do you want to pay for it?" And they'll go, "What do you mean?" I said, "Yeah, whatever you want to pay for it." And he goes, "What if I said nothing?" I said, "Fine." So one guy said, "Okay," and he walked out. I figured it's karma. But
yeah.
because I'm not being a capitalist, Republicans get really, really confused.
Well, it's got to be very disoriented for sure.
Yeah, it is. I love
It's
it.
like you've removed gravity from the earth, and they're just floating. They don't know what to. Well, let me ask you something. Obviously, it sounds like you make your living from your building firm, right, and not from the bookstore. Am I
Well,
right?
there's nobody who makes money as an independent bookseller. They just say they do, but no one does.
It's
I mean,
great that you do it, though. I mean, hats off, man, for doing it.
yeah. I'm like you. Cognitively, someone will come in and go, "I love this place. It's so great," but I can't emotionally feels like I can't do that. I can't accept it emotionally. Cognitively, yes, they love it, but it doesn't
Emotionally, yeah.
get in there.
Well, I mean, do you get up every day and go to the bookstore? Is that what life is?
No, I don't know what I do.
You need to be there to manage the store, or how does it work?
No, I go there just to enjoy myself and insult my staff. That's my favorite thing, is insulting them.
They must be thrilled. I hope you pay them extra to take the insults.
I give them small mid-year bonuses.
What about insurance? Insurance plans or no?
No, what are you, crazy? No, you know, now I feel bad. I should do more. You're right.
Oh, who am I to judge? I was just asking. I don't own a bookstore. I don't know how hard it is. I
You
can
should come
imagine.
by. You should come by. But do you live in a fancy house in LA up on a hill somewhere?
No, I did once. I don't now. I live in a nice, I live in a nice old house built in 1938. Yeah, I've lived up and I've lived down. Now I had a nice place.
I pay people to leave my bookstore because
Yeah.
they're really. I'll say, if you leave, I'll give you $20.
Really?
That works.
I gotta, and this is in Philly?
Yeah, just outside of Philly.
What town again?
It's some little ass town called Exton. It's like, you ever hear of the King of Prussia?
I know Exton. So you're like on the main line. I know Exton because I used to hitchhike from Philly to Pottstown, and if I'm not mistaken,
Right.
you go through Exton, right?
Yes,
Because
you go right.
I would leave school and just ditch it and go to like Penn for the weekend with people I knew there, to get fucked up for a couple of days. And there was a diner in Exton that served amazing homemade pie, blueberry pie. And I would always stop in. So I actually, oddly enough, know Exton.
Yeah, it was like there was the Black Horse right on Route 30, right before you turn right on 100. And yeah, you were right. You went right by us. You went right by my bookstore.
Yeah. Well, little did I know. You're probably too young to have the bookstore then, but so your clients are other ladies from town? Is this considered the suburbs, or is this considered a small town?
Oh no, it's the suburb. Oh yeah, it's definitely the suburbs. You know, a bunch
of the main line. Are we talking about the main line here, as they say?
It's the poor end of the main line. It runs out there, but it's like the last of the last. But it's really gentrified now, and since because of COVID and all, which you talk about in your book, people have moved out of the city and want to be out.
Yeah. I am still in a city, but you know, I think, you know, you got to live somewhere. Who knows where we'll all end up? I mean, now the monkeypox is coming. It's a whole new ballgame, you know?
They should never have called it monkeypox. It was stupid. Pox is
not
a bad word.
Not great marketing. Yeah. COVID-19 respectable disease.
I was thinking they should call it the summer slump.
Very palliative. Yes. People will just ease into that summer slump. Yeah. Apparently you get horrible rashes, which is not great. Yeah.
I like to go to Google and go to Google Images and look at monkeypox.
What do you see? I've never done that. I've been living in denial.
Well, I mean, it looks like monkeypox. What do you think of
little monkey-shaped scabs form all over your body?
Yeah, those rhesus monkeys.
Wow.
No, the monkeys that Ben Stiller had to deal with in Night at the Museum. What are they called?
Sure. I don't know.
You know Ben Stiller, you should know the monkeys.
I don't know the name of the animals he has worked with, and that's on me. You're absolutely right. I should know what kind of monkeys. I mean, I'm a monkey fan. I love monkeys, but there's so many varieties. You know, there's chimpanzees, there's bonobos. They're the ones who like to have sex all the time, right? The bonobos.
Yeah, and they beat off.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing B-O-N-O-B-O, I think.
Yeah, they beat off all the time.
Life of sensual debauchery. So you got to love that.
Could you call Ben Stiller and say, I had an interview with this great guy, Sam Hankin, and he asked me what kind of monkeys you messed around with? That would be like my touch with greatness. Not that you are not a touch with greatness.
Listen, there's no comparison. That is greatness. Yeah, I'll be happy to make a call for you. I'll get back when I find out. Sure. I probably have your email or something. I'll hit you back.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Well, what kind of monkeys were in there? Yeah. Okay. I'll find out for you.
That'd be great. Excellent. That's like when John Updike wrote me a postcard.
Really? Nice.
Yeah, I was like 12 years old and I read his short stories, the one at the AMP where the guy quits because this girl in a bikini is kicked out of the AMP. And I wrote him a letter and I said, I'm having some problems understanding some of your stories. And he wrote back and he goes, perhaps a simple rereading would help.
Wow, that's tart. Oh my God. But at least you got back in touch.
Yeah, a nice 4-cent postcard.
Well, those were the days. How did you get his address? Did you send it to his publisher?
Yeah, back then it worked.
I wrote Jerry Lewis when I was 3, but I never heard. I'm still waiting, you know, still waiting.
I used to write NASA with ideas about how they could improve their spacecraft, and I would include diagrams of stuff.
So you're on a list somewhere, for sure. Somebody's got a file in your ass, man. I mean, sure.
I think you're on better lists than me, man.
I doubt it. You know, I was most destructive to myself, you know.
Maybe. That may be a good way of looking at it. If you're destructive to yourself, you don't get arrested. Well, that makes no sense either.
Well, trust me, that can be an arrestable offense as well.
Yeah, your book, selling your book. You say you break out in handcuffs. That went over big.
Well, yeah, I think, what was I talking about? No, it's when somebody, you know, because I haven't had a drink in years and, you know, clean, sober kind of guy, which doesn't go over well. I was on a book tour in France. And like an idiot, I didn't want to like, you know, hit the champagne. And I charmingly said, oh, you know, one drink and I break out in handcuffs. And they just kind of like backed slowly out of the room, you know, until it was just me and a very distraught publisher shaking his head.
Yeah, you did a few of those things where you got a slight smile that kind of indicated that maybe you had to be handled carefully during the rest of the
Yeah,
book.
I make no claims to be a smoothie.
Isn't it interesting how closely I've read your book?
I'm very impressed, man. This is really one of the most intense, detail-driven interviews I have ever done, and judgmental too, which I like. I like the judgmental. Not a lot of interviewers are like, "Well, you sound like the guy who made everything." I like that. You got an edge.
Well, I
Is
knew
that is
that.
that is that anger? Is that what is that? What motivates your interview style?
Well, that's kind of insulting too. It's not anger. No. Well, no, it's not anger. I just knew, you know what I do? Same thing
I
you
take
do.
I think is great, actually, all kidding aside. It's passion.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. But also the other thing is, and you do it too, is you can size up somebody in about 5 to 10 seconds. And most of the time you're right. And then the rest of the time we get, embarrassed or humiliated. But, I sized you up when I read, I know what you're like, and you were right. Don't you do that?
Size people up.
Yeah.
I simultaneously size them up and know that I'm often wrong, because I am often wrong. Sizing myself up, I will tell you, I am often wrong in my judgments about other people. But it's a Jonathan Swift thing. You loathe mankind and love every Tom, Dick, and Harry.
Yeah. Well, hell is other people. Do you believe that? I don't like people that much.
Well, it depends on the hell, and it depends on the people. But no doubt, Sartre knew what he was talking about. In my case, at first it was like other people on a bus, but I learned to overcome that because I was riding a bus with strangers for a good bit of time, 2 weeks to change.
But when you lost your busmate and were in where the ovens were in that asshole, and his fiance, who should never have, when she walks down the aisle, someone should grab her by the arm. But
I'm not great with marriage, but I'm great with divorce. So I think it's testament if you're friends with your exes. I think that speaks well to your character.
I think that's
I love
true.
that. I love hearing that.
Yeah, she was at my 70th birthday party along with all my ex in-law people and nephews and nieces. It was great. It was wonderful.
Fantastic, yeah.
Well, I told them, come to my party, not my funeral, because I won't be at my funeral.
Oh, you'll be there, but you won't know.
All the party favors said Sam Hankin, 1952 --?
Do you think about your funeral? Are you afraid of death?
I think as you get older, your fear of mortality lessens, don't you?
I think you're right. It's so inevitable, but at the same time, there is that twinge of what the fuck happens on the other side,
Yeah.
If anything.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Are you a believer in the, in the great beyond?
Yeah, it's really stupid if there wasn't. No, or one way I've always looked at it is, you're swimming in this infinite blue, warm sea, and then you pop up and you go, "Hey, what's this?" And then you go back down, and that's the end. And you just keep swimming.
That's a great way to look at it. I like that. Yeah.
And it's not a problem.
The old Richard Pryor joke, I don't believe in reincarnation because with my luck, I'll come back as me, which is a great Pryor line of old.
I do worry at night when I think of my life and I think, well, I'm definitely going to hell.
And nowhere you haven't been, probably.
Well,
I don't know anybody who hasn't been to hell. People who've had an easy ride the whole way. I can like them, but you can look in somebody's eyes and know if they've been through some shit. Maybe that's the sizing up you were talking about, but in a good way. It's like, oh, that guy's been through some shit. I can talk to him,
Yeah. Well, basically, the sizing up part is just whether they have a sense of humor or not.
Oh, well, there is, yeah.
Like Jerry Seinfeld.
It's tough, man. It's tough. It's tough. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, I interrupted you the whole time. No, Jerry Seinfeld said he's not interested in talking to anyone who's not funny. Neither am I, really.
Yeah, but you interview a lot of authors. Are they uniformly funny, charming, witty?
The only thing that all of them are is anti-Trump, because they're intelligent. They're all intelligent.
Yeah.
But no, No, you know what? Most of them I can make laugh. All right. Well, we've been talking for an hour and 40 minutes and 41.
Oh my God. Longest interview I've ever done. Well, this has been a pleasure, man. Great to meet you. And I'll get that information about the monkey.
Okay.
Well, it was great talking.
It was great talking to you. I look forward to maybe meeting you someday. And if you ever come back to Exton and I'll come out to LA, maybe we could get together. I got your number.
I love that, man.
Okay.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Likewise. See ya.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.